How's it going, guys? So this is Greg Ferris with Ferris for Fitness and MyoBrain, and this is going to be my review of the Cube Method by Brandon Lilly. I just finished an 8-week or 9-week cycle of the Cube, and I'm kind of giving my thoughts about it. I won't go through like a pros and cons because I think that's kind of difficult to do. I think you have to look at these variables of a program, and for some people it may be a pro, for others it can be a con. So I just want to kind of talk about my general thoughts on them and talk about ways I manipulated the program and things I personally, like I said, liked and didn't like about it, and then kind of give you some pointers on some stuff. So let's talk about the Cube. If you haven't kind of watched my past training videos, like I said, it's made popular and created by Brandon Lilly. Again, I'm not going to talk about the whole kind of concepts and stuff like that. He would definitely be a better source of information. But essentially, it's a 9-week layout, probably to prepare you for either a meet, a powerlifting meet, or at least like testing out some heavy singles, doubles, triples, something like that. It's definitely prepared you to increase your intensity, and not like a 5-3-1 where it's meant to just kind of repeat over and over. I think you can do that, but again, it's a little bit longer cycle. And when you look at the training of a course of 9 weeks, it would make sense that you're trying to hit some PRs at the end of it. So essentially, you're having 9 weeks of training, with that 10th week either being a test out or a meet. And then the 9 weeks kind of split up into three-week blocks. You're performing the squat, the bench, and the deadlift just one time per week with the program laid out. And it's going to kind of undulate with a heavy day or a max effort day is what I kind of called it, a rep day, and an explosive day. So each week you're only doing like one max effort. Each week you're only doing one rep and one explosive, if that makes sense. So if you look at it from the point of view of like your squat, which is what you start your week with, I think the first week is explosive maybe. Let me double check. The concept's the same, I just want to make sure I'm right. So yeah, the first week is explosive. So say on Monday you hit, I think the first week's 8 sets of 3, not a very sub-maximal weight, just kind of getting some good practice in, being explosive. Then the second week is rep week, so I think the second week is like 3 sets of 8 to 12 or something like that. And then the third week is max effort. And then you kind of just keep doing that. Fourth week would be explosive, fifth would be rep, sixth would be max effort. And you get like 3-week blocks of that. And then each block successfully gets a little bit heavier intensity, and then of course the reps will drop. So for instance, like the rep day on the first kind of 3-week cycle is 8 to 12, and then I believe it goes down to like 5 to 8 maybe, and then the third time you do a rep week is like 3 to 5, so not many reps at all. But again, the intensity is going up, so it may be like 70%, 75%, 80% for your rep days, just for like an example. And again, it's the same kind of concept. Even the explosive days will get gradually heavier, and of course the max effort stuff would get gradually heavier. And it's all kind of based off percentages, which I'll kind of talk about that before, or I'll talk about that later. But that's kind of the basic concept of the program. Doing the lift one time per week, you're getting a variety of you're getting a variety of explosive rep and max effort work, and also you're doing a lot of variations of the lifts. So like on your squat day, say you do like a low bar for your 8 sets of 3, then you may do 2 sets of 5 with a high bar, and then 2 sets of 5 with a pause squat. With bench press, it could be like regular bench, close grip, and then pause. With deadlift, I think it's regular pulls, block pulls, deficit. So that's kind of good, some good variety, which I'll again talk about that later. But that's the important nuts and bolts of the program, really. So now let's kind of talk about each specific part that I wanted to mention. And again, I'll talk about what I liked and didn't like about the programming in the Cube, and what I kind of got out of it. So like I said, the variety of movements was really nice. I really had no background with pause squats, really with close grip bench press much at all, at least not like seriously, as well as deficit deadlifts. I've really never done either of those 3 variations of the big 3, and that's something that Brandon will talk a lot about in his book. I definitely recommend. I haven't read, I think there's a Cube book, I haven't read that, but I did read 365 Strong, which had a lot of the Cube stuff in. I may be wrong, but I think it's like a part 2 of the Cube. But again, the Cube book or 365 Strong would be a good way to get this information. Yeah, he does talk a lot about how he doesn't just want to be strong with a 1 rep max or a 3 rep max or in his gear, or he has to be prepped up or whatever. 365 Strong is kind of the idea that you can just not literally walk into a gym and squat 500 or whatever, but you're strong in any gym, any environment, any lift, any rep range, whatever. Like, you don't need to be perfect situation, everything like that. You know, a perfect 8-week prep for one lift kind of a thing to see results. So I definitely think that's a really cool concept and something I really try to not only emulate with his programming, but just kind of take for further on with any kind of style of training. Because I think a lot of people, especially myself, will get tied down to, like, you know, things have to be perfect, my warm-up has to be perfect, you know, I have to be in the same squat rack, all these things. And again, he talks a lot about, like, just being able to lift anything, anytime, anywhere, any rep, which is cool. So I like the variety of movements, like I said, but definitely I think some of the stuff needs to be tailored. So again, if you're like a high bar squatter already, I probably wouldn't do high bar squats and then Olympic squats is what he calls them. Maybe do like a high bar squat and like a front squat to get some better variety, or else you're just going to be doing essentially the same exact movement. Also with the deficit deadlifts, I think some people have probably a contraindicated exercise for. I know myself, like I probably shouldn't have been pulling from a deficit most of the time, and I would feel pretty good even if it was a high volume deadlift session until I got to deficits, and it just kind of wrecked me. So for a lot of people that don't have mobility and or body type to get down like that, especially if you're not, maybe if you can adjust it pulling off a lesser deficit. But again, be smart. If you feel like you're just getting wrecked by an exercise, do feel free to kind of make some adjustments there. But again, I did like the variety of movements. Also the specificity of the program. So again, it's a powerlifting program. It does have some assistance work, but again, each day, each of the 3 of the 4 days, you're doing the movements. You're probably doing at least 6 to 10 sets of the movements if you count all of the variations. So again, if you're going to be competing in a sport that has 3 lifts as its component, you want majority of your training to be in that component. It just kind of makes sense. And that's something that I really liked about the program. The frequency is something that I personally didn't like, just because if you followed me for a while, I tend to like more frequency, not just for myself, but I think most people would thrive on higher frequency. Not going to get into all of the reasons why I think so, but again, I think if someone can recover from squatting 2 or 3, 4 times a week, that would probably be more beneficial than squatting 1 time per week, which is what the program calls for. Again, that's not a black and white protocol. I'm just saying, if I'm giving some general information, that's what I would tell somebody. Obviously, this program works for a lot of really, really strong people. But again, something that I didn't like so much about the program. And again, if you follow me for the past 8 or 9 weeks, I did a lot of the movements. I didn't really deadlift twice per week. Sometimes, maybe like once or twice during the cycle. But I probably squatted 6 out of the 8 weeks, 6 out of 8 or 9 weeks, and probably did bench press at least half the time. As a good, again, just because I like doing the lifts more often. I've always felt better when I did the lifts more often. That's something that I noticed the first, like, at least 3 weeks when I was doing squat and bench 3 times a week, I think, before I started this, and then deadlifting twice per week, is that the lifts just didn't feel as fluid for me. I didn't feel as confident going into a lot of lifts. And again, I think that was just because I'm so used to doing them more frequently that I kind of had some trouble with that. Next thing is the accessory day. So again, it's he has it set off for a 4-day program. I actually ran it as a 5-day program majority of the weeks. And again, I never really settled in, to be honest with you, with the 2 final days. I'd say most of the time I ended up with squat, bench, deadlift, lower, upper. I think that's what it was. And again, I would just kind of do a lot of different stuff with those last 2 assistance days. But essentially with his accessory day, he has a lot of like leg presses and high rep. I think he has overhead press, is a really good movement to do. He likes military press. Higher rep, kind of like he called like a bodybuilding type day, working on a lot of your weak points. So I do like that kind of concept too, even for a power lifter. I think that can be beneficial.